Hey everybody, this is Pastor Chris. I'm coming to you live from Lexington Park Baptist Church. This is PC Studios. It's good to be with you on January 20th, 2026. How in the world are you doing? I hope you are blessed and highly favored by God. Good to be with you today. So today is a special edition of Word of Encouragement. We are on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch channels. If you want to be with me live, you need to be at facebook.com/Pastor Chris McCombs. However, we are also on podcast. If you miss it, you can go to podcast on Spotify under Word of Encouragement WOE for Pastor Chris McCombs. You can find us there as well. I'll be posting this later on today on the podcast. So today I want to talk about religious liberty. Today I want to talk in light of what's going on in Minneapolis. And if you don't know, there is a lot of ICE activity with illegal immigration. There's been some Somalia stuff with fraud. We have governments not working together, the state and the local Minneapolis government not working with federal government. And we have a religious liberty violation on steroids that took place, and mobs trying to say that their actions were justified in First Amendment to totally disrupt, intimidate, scare, harass, unbelievable church service. So I got a lot to talk about in this, but I want to start with some scripture. In Romans, the book of Romans, now given Paul is writing to a Roman pagan government, but people in Rome who've come to Christ, and he's writing to them. Let everyone submit to government authority, since there is an authority except from God, and authorities that exist are instituted by God. So then one who resists the authority is opposing God's command, and those who oppose it will bring judgment on themselves. For rulers are not a terror to good conduct, but to bad. Do you want to be unafraid of one in authority? Do what is good. You will have its approval. For it is God's servant for your good. But if you do wrong, be afraid, because it does not carry the sword for no reason. For it is God's servant, an avenger that brings wrath on the ones who do wrong. Therefore, you must submit, not only because of wrath, but also because of your conscience. And for this reason, you pay taxes, since the authorities are God's servants continually contending to these tasks. Pay your obligations to everyone, taxes to who you owe taxes, tolls to those you owe tolls, respect to those you respect, honor to those you honor. And then it says this, do not owe anyone anything except to love one another. And you go down a few verses. Love your neighbor as yourself. Love does not wrong their neighbor. Love, therefore, is the fulfillment of the law. So what's going on in this text? How does it apply to us today? I would say it's definitely something whenever we run into government issues, we need to learn from Paul's writing in Rome. Now, he's saying this about a pagan government, let alone our government should be founded on Christian ideals. Now, I know there are those in our culture trying to eradicate that. And the moment you say we're a Christian nation, you're a white nationalist if you're a white male. I am not a white nationalist, but I do believe we're a Judeo-Christian ethic founded nation. No doubt about that historically. I think that is still our Constitution and Declaration were given to us to uphold those basic truths. So those things that are self-evident, the things that we have in our Constitution, even John Adams writes it's given to Christians. This government is supposed to be for Christians. We are endowed by our Creator. There's a sovereign God out there. All these things that we look at, and I don't know how secular pagan people blow it off, but they do. As a Christian, it's good to know that there's a Judeo-Christian ethic that's in our nation. Also, as a Christian, no matter what government I serve in, I need to look at my duty to the state. And my duty to the state is like to do good, to respect their authority. And unless they're doing bad. Now, there are times where you do rebel against a government. And listen, I want to say this. What's going on with ICE should be supported by local authorities. The mayor's office and the governor's office in Minnesota should be working with ICE to get bad people that are here illegal out. Why there are people saying they want ICE out, they want illegal immigration, and they're okay with this illegal activity is very anti-American, and it's unlawful. We're a nation of law and order. We're a constitutional republic. and we want safe society and citizenship. So listen, the smoke and mirrors of the governor and the mayor in Minneapolis and Minnesota are totally wrong. They have caused the problem by creating a sanctuary city, and so have other mayors and governors in other places that are doing this. It is illegal. They're not following the law. The tragedy of Renee Good. I will address that just briefly here. I've not spoken on it. Listen, I watched the video. It was an unnecessary. It should have never happened. One, we go back. She shouldn't have been parked there. She should have complied with the officer's orders. I've always told my children, if you're in the wrong place at the wrong time and you're not doing anything wrong, she was doing wrong. Not wrong to get shot, but she was doing wrong. And you're not in the wrong. Just do what they say, and it will always work out for good. I believe that to this day. If you're doing good, the authority is going to be on your side. Now, that's not true in tyrannical countries and dictators in Iran, where they're cutting off heads and killing people and massacring people and these things that happen in certain countries. Yes, that's when you revolt. That's when you don't participate. But ideally, God's given us this. This is why we do. In America, I think Romans 13, not written for America. Paul didn't know about America, but I think it fits for us. Now, does the government always get it right? COVID, we know they messed up, right? Back to Renee Good. So we don't want anybody to get shot. And the thing I think people are not doing is, and you need to do this, everyone, you can watch the video 1,000 times. She does turn the wheel, and then she guns it. That police officer did not know she turned the wheels. And from that police officer's perspective, he's going to say I thought she was coming right at me. And therefore that becomes, she didn't obey lawful orders. And now this is a lethal weapon. Wow, coming at me and others potentially. And so we can argue all you want. I don't say that because I'm white. I'm a male. I'm a white nationalist. I'm a Christian nationalist. None of that. But this lady was in the wrong. And it's sad and it's tragic and it should not have happened. And it should not have happened because of her, but also unnecessarily. I think it was an unnecessary thing. So now fast forward, what's going on? Minneapolis is in just a crazy city. I've never been there, but it's just nuts what's going on. And to see all the protests and the whistles and the coming at ICE and resisting federal agents and causing problems and getting in the way, it's crazy. We should be law-abiding citizens. This is not Nazi Germany. This is not any. We're trying to get people that shouldn't be here, legitimately should not be here, and they're causing problems and they're criminals and having a record. The idea is to isolate those people and get them out. Unfortunately, and we should never have anyone be harmed, and we don't want to have anybody that's here legally harmed. So if you're in those two categories, my heart breaks for you. Well, there should not be that. If you're here legally, you got a green card, and you're here and you're legal immigration, and you're working through the process, and you came the right way, and you're a good, outstanding person working towards citizenship. Outstanding. I applaud you. I support you. I pray for you. But if you're here illegally, you need to be aware of this. And if you're here illegally causing problems and a criminal, you should be gone. I think there's room for talk on other things. So let's fast forward to Sunday. In Minneapolis, a Southern Baptist church as I understand it. I've seen a letter from Kevin Ezell, which is the NAM president. I've seen a letter, email response from Al Mohler, who's the president of Southern Seminary. I'm sure there's other things out there calling this out. So what happens is Don Lemon is used to be a CNN anchor, got fired, rightfully so. Terrible guy, by the way. He claims to be a Christian, and he claims to worship God. His lifestyle is not that. He uses his black status, and he even called the people of this church white supremacist. And I'm just like, they did nothing to earn that title. They're not. The pastor was very clear with him. We're here to worship Jesus when he confronted him. He's an instigator. He causes problems. And this mob that he had with him, I don't know, let's say it looked massive. So massive in conjunction to the 50 or more that just came into a worship service, started shouting Renee Good's name. That's why I had to talk about Renee Good. and started shouting, no more ICE and that kind of stuff. And they're just getting in the congregant's face. They're getting in the pastor's face. They're causing problems. They will not leave. They're trespassing. So what happened in this moment? Fear and intimidation was brought into a place of worship. This is America, folks. Listen, I understand other places have persecution from the government. Our government has given us this right, the First Amendment right, to worship. The freedom of religion, not from religion. See, politicians that don't like religious people, they try to change the of to from. Big difference. You need to go back to grammar school, okay? I've had that with one of our delegates here in delegate over where our church sits. He's a Democrat, and he tried to argue with me from religion. No, it's of religion. In other words, I have a right to religion. And by the way, this does not exclude God from government, nor does it exclude or end my rights to religious thought and views that I may want good for society to even be in laws. So those that try to do that are just flat out wrong constitutionally, let alone morally with God. Now, let's look at this. This situation, they're disrupting the service. The pastor was like, I got to take care of my flock. I got to take care of my family. And, and then here they've been invaded, right? And they're intimidated and just overwhelmed and total chaos and total disrespect. And he's trying to lovingly say, I got to go take care of my family. And Don Lemon says, don't push me. And I'm thinking, dude, you just invaded his space. He's not assaulting you. And you have the audacity to say that. And you have the audacity to say you're a Christian and you worship. And then he had the audacity to say, if you talk to these people, are you loving these people? And he goes, these people are not here to talk. Hello, Don Lemon. They're not there to talk. They were there to disrupt. They were there to intimidate. They were there to put fear in these people. And they did. They totally ruined a day, a sacred day for Christians. Now, because it's Christians, some people think they're going to get away with it. God forbid that happens. DOJ's looking into it. I know Minnesota's not going to do anything. Minneapolis is not going to do anything. All of those people violated, one, the Constitution. See, their right to assemble and protest, they could have done that outside the church, a reasonable space, and not prohibited people from coming in, but they didn't. In fact, there's a FACE Act, I think it's called, which allows you can't do that at abortion clinics, and the only way they could pass this, the Democrats under Bill Clinton, was they had to include a religion clause too. So you cannot post or you cannot invade an abortion clinic. You cannot block people from entering. Now, you can protest at a reasonable distance. The same goes for Christians. You can't, or Muslims or Jews, it doesn't matter, whatever your faith is. They cannot keep you from worship. They can't interrupt your worship. And so if they do, they're in violation of an actual codified law, and they're in violation of the Constitution. The freedom of religion, the freedom of speech, which they have the right to their speech, but not trespassing and not violating a religious service. And so this happened in America, in the Twin Cities, in Minnesota, in Minneapolis. You guys, this is America in 2026. And this group of people and Don Lemon think what they did was right. Listen, if they do not get filed, all of them, if they can identify them, should be filed underneath federal law and the FACE law and civil rights. All of that should be done, and they should stand trial. And if convicted, which they should be, they should go to jail. And I hate to say that. Now, had they been protesting outside, whatever, that's fine. They could do that. It's just, but not disrupt the service, not trespass, not come in. And they were asked to leave, and they didn't. So I want you to know the severity of this. Now, this could happen anywhere. It could happen here. It could happen anywhere. This should never happen in America. Now, what we should do is immediately call the police, and the police should have come. But again, you're in Minnesota, Minneapolis, where the police are not cooperating very well, and there's chaos. It's just poor policing, and they're not working with ICE. There's so many things I could say. So we need to make sure that we do the right things. And in this type of situation, we keep our head on us, we stay where we're at, and we call the police and let the police come in and take them out and arrest them, hopefully. You tell them they're trespassing, they got to leave. This all happened in Minneapolis, you all. So I just want to encourage you today, as we read the Word of God, that authority exists and is instituted by God, and it's supposed to be for our God, good. And it says, for rulers are not a terror to good conduct, but to bad conduct. If we're doing good stuff, we should not have anything to fear. And then he goes on, though, Paul writes in this letter in Romans 13, that we are then to love one another. We should, listen, do not owe anything to anyone except to love one another. Let's make sure we're loving our neighbors. Let's make sure we're loving one another. So let's talk about that in context then. In this context, right? How do you love someone that's violating you or trespassing or disrupting a sacred order of worship? This doesn't mean we become passive like Don Lemon was trying to say, have you talked to them? They didn't want to talk. They were there to protest, disrupt, harass, intimidate, bring terror to these people. These good people that were there, they just wanted to worship Jesus. They just wanted to pray and sing songs and have a good sermon. They're not white supremacists. They're not evil people. They're not causing problems in their community or society. They're not white nationalists. They're none of those things. Yes, they may believe in a Judeo-Christian ethic. They may believe that America is Christian at its origins. That is not a bad thing, you guys. I'm tired of this, and we've got to speak up. We've got to speak the truth. We've got to make sure people hear that. That doesn't make you a white nationalist or supremacist with these connotations that people try to connect to it. And so we need to love one another, but we don't love what they did. We don't love this, and we don't honor this, and we don't promote these type of things. This was the opposite of love what they did. This was the opposite of what the Constitution says freedom of speech is. They actually violated all the tenets of what we really believe. And you see, the premise of the First Amendment was to give you individual rights, but also it was against a government that might be tyrannical. Here, the government wasn't tyrannical. Our own people became tyrannical. The violators here that need to be held account, love holds account. They didn't love her neighbor. In fact, in that moment, that church was loving one another and was doing, they said, listen, that pastor said, the hope of the cities, the twin cities in Minneapolis, is Jesus. It's love. And now I got to go take care of my flock and take care of my family. That pastor's spot on, man. Don Lemon was wrong. These protesters were wrong. Loving a neighbor does not mean that we accept what they did. They need to be held accountable. We need to make sure that. In fact, it says the commandments say do not commit adultery, do not murder, do not covet, and all the other commandments are summed up in one commandment, love your neighbor. If you love your neighbor, you're not going to disrupt a worship service, you guys. You're not going to do that. But if you do love your neighbor, you're going to get people that are here harming people. You should have local authorities and federal authorities working together to make sure that cities are safe. That's one thing we should expect in America. Law-abiding citizens is the key word, and law and order in the land in which we live. And it should be consistently, whether I live in Minneapolis or I live in Annapolis. From Minnesota to Maryland, whether I live in, Sacramento, California, some 3 liberal places I just told you. It doesn't matter where I live. It should be the same thing, law and order, law-abiding citizens, doing good for one another, loving one another. And if you are a Christian, being able to worship freely without fear of government coming in, but it wasn't government, but definitely not the fear of people coming in either. Own people that are in the community coming and doing this ugliness to you. And also, I think we need to have this freedom. So this freedom to know that in America is unique. This is not America. This is not what we accept, nor should we tolerate it. Hey, I hope this special edition of WOE this week will motivate you to speak out, to be bold, call this what it is. This is, one, from a Christian's perspective, sinful and violation. But from a constitutional perspective, this is a violation, and they should go to jail because of this. So, listen, don't give me anybody saying, hey, you're not consistent of this and that. I'm really consistent in my thoughts. If somebody violates the law, they should be held accountable. I thought that about January 6th, and I think that also about January the 18th as well now. January 18th, 2026, when religious liberty in the United States of America, in Minneapolis, Minnesota, was violated to an extreme way where a mob came in to intimidate, harass, and scare, put fear into good people, good law-abiding citizens. That is not right. Now, I know as a Christian, we're not guaranteed these rights, and persecution can come our way. But in America, we still have a voice. And in America, the system is set up to where a Christian, a Jew, a Muslim, a Hindu, Baha'i faith, whatever you are, there should never be this type of intimidation ever. This is an abuse of power, and it's being a bad neighbor, and it's a violation of everything we believe as a constitutional republic. Hey, God bless you. Remember these two realities. God loves you, so do I. I'll see you back tomorrow. Take care.